Thank you so much for these fantastic, very insightful and very thought-provoking contributions. I think we have such a vast range of issues that have been touched that although our time is very short, I would really like to have this opportunity to address some questions that have been raised by the audience already, and that maybe we can address now, because this is a very unique opportunity, obviously, to have such experts on stage. So to make it quick and efficient, time efficient, I took like 3 pages of notes, but I will stick with the questions first from the audience, because I think it's their chance to really turn to you and use your insights and get your suggestions. So there's 3 questions that I would quickly like to say, and then I would like to ask you to tackle any of those that you are most interested in. The first one is on the recent Istanbul talks. And the question is, what is your view on these Istanbul talks, outcome and the war implications for that? The second is about Ukraine. How do you think the EU can step up Ukraine's integration into the TIB, but I think also it can be related to the larger strategic cooperation with the EU and support for EU that you have mentioned. Boris, if I may ask you on this, to help Ukraine better, defend itself better. And lastly, there's one to Zsolt, Németh, who the question is about the 5% increase in defense expenditure. Who should communicate it to the public? Only politicians or broader groups, and how should it be done? How can it be done? And I think that's also a question to Zsolt Kutnyánszky, because it's a government, it's a challenge to the government as well. So I would like to ask, I don't know in what order, can I ask? Can I turn to you then? Also asking your reflections on maybe the other speakers that you had in mind.
I'll be very brief on the Istanbul talks. Let me repeat what I said in my speech. I think President Trump was right to push from his inauguration onward, and even before, to work towards a ceasefire and a lasting and durable peace in Ukraine. And so he's been testing the parties. And I think it's obvious that so far Russia has not shown any seriousness, whether on a ceasefire or on a serious negotiation to end this war. Russia's track record in terms of its neighbors is not a good one since 1991. And that relates to Ukraine as well. If we look at the Minsk agreements, if we look at the Budapest memorandum. So this needs to be a very, very solid agreement that ends the war. And to get to that, I think we need a ceasefire. Now, Ukraine has accepted what President Trump has put on the table. Russia has not. So I think that is something that we have to keep in mind. There's a lot of diplomatic activity ongoing, inspired by President Trump, obviously Vice President Vance, in Rome, in conversations over the weekend. We had the Istanbul talks. We have European allies also playing a role in order to back up Ukraine, to put it in a position where it can negotiate, not from a position of weakness, but from a position of strength, to continue as a sovereign and independent nation that can choose with whom it is aligned. And obviously, it wishes to be aligned with the European Union, with NATO, and with the West. And that is something that we should respect. On the issue of the European Union, we are happy to see that the EU is looking to play a role on defense. It has instruments that it can bring to the table when it comes to defense industry, when it comes to generating resources for defense. And this is very welcome, but it is also clear, and I think there's no disagreement on this matter, that NATO will remain the framework for collective defense. But it is a framework, and again, I repeat myself, that needs to be recalibrated. European allies and Canada have not stepped up. We are now in the process of stepping up, and I can tell you that the Secretary General is very optimistic, based on the ministerial meeting we had in Antalya on Thursday, that at the summit we will be able to deliver what I would describe as a historic recalibration with Europeans, bringing something to the table that will allow them to pull their weight, to play their role in terms of transatlantic security and defense.
Thank you. Zsolt?
Thank you so much. About the Istanbul talks, Hungary, as the Hungarian government, is very welcome this diplomatic talks. Beginning of the Ukraine war, the Hungarian government said the only solution is the diplomatic way, and I remember there is many meetings in 2023 or 2024 when we was just alone with this diplomatic way solution. So we are very welcome, because they will be started as a diplomatic way in Istanbul with US participation and the European too.
I think maybe one word about the 5% we should communicate.
The 5%.
How will it be accepted?
Okay. Maybe in Hungary it was a very interesting story, because end of the 2000 years the defense spending was just 1.1% of the GDP, and when we started our development program in 2016, that was the aim. We have to take this 2% in 2024. We are very lucky, because the spending was 2023, but we realized, and all in Europe and in the NATO allies realized, the 2% is not enough, but it's very important. With this new aim, this 5%, there will be step by step, not just 1 year or 2 years, because the economical framework is very important. All of these countries in allies, so not just from 2% to 5%. It is just step by step. For example, 0.2% per year or a higher percent, but the step-by-step solution is the way in this.
Thank you. And Zsolt?
Thank you very much. The questions, Réka. Istanbul, I have 2 remarks. One positive and one less positive. So the positive remark is that I think this has been unimaginable, that we are able to create a situation when on high level the Russians and the Ukrainians sit down and start diplomatic talks. So I believe this is a remarkable development, that something has started. And Istanbul, I believe, is a very important place, because some 3 years ago we had a round in Istanbul and we were quite close to agreement. Boris Johnson was not so supportive, but we all remember that we were quite close 3 years ago in Istanbul. So the Turkish involvement is also very important. The second remark is not so positive, is that we have thought that the situation between America and Russia is better. And now we have to see that the starting point where we start the diplomatic process is not there, as we would have hoped for. But we are in a situation when we need to follow a longer road. And it seems to be not a pleasant exercise, as we might also see that probably the Russians haven't given up their original intention to occupy the whole country. And I believe that this kind of danger is again back in the air, dear colleagues. So
that's what I wanted to ask, exactly. Do you think that the Russians just pretending to be interested in peace and actually focusing on military escalation and undermining of Ukraine?
I think they have a lot of options on the table. And I think the American diplomacy and our unity, the Atlantic unity between Europe and America, might play a very important role. Which option is going to be followed? But I think still far too many options for the Russians are on the table. And concerning the 5%, I would like to say that there are two very important components. One is the graduality, what the State Secretary has mentioned, but also the European economic prosperity. What's going to happen with the recession, what we are having in Europe? How are we able to overcome it? And how the transatlantic economic partnership is going to develop, what I tried to address in my contribution. I think it would be vital to find an answer for that. Because obviously, if there is a victory over the recession in Europe, then I think the perspective to achieve and to decide about the baseline, the new baseline, as the Assistant Secretary General has suggested that in Hague we are aiming at a new baseline, is more realistic. So I believe that we need to follow both tracks. We need to be ambitious in security terms, a substantial growth. We need to increase. 2% is not enough. Everything that was said is very important in this regard. We are not talking about a particular number, but at the same time we need to be able to finance this. And I think we have to realize that we are not just military and security partners, but we are economic partners across the Atlantic. And I think this understanding has to be born both in Brussels and in Washington, D.C. Thank you very much.
Well, I'm sure we would have tons of questions, and I'm very sorry for the time being so short. But with this, I would like to thank our audience for the great questions, and thank first and foremost our wonderful speakers for the honor of coming and attending and speaking at our event and helping us get forward. I'm very much encouraged by the reactions that it's wake up and shake up, which is on the, or wake up is done, shake up is in process, and break up is not on the menu. So on this cheerful note, thank you so much. Please join me thanking our speakers. We will have time after in the break.